Hello, everyone, and welcome. Well, this is a bit of an off topic, a little bit of everything, because I would like to share a channel with you, but the theme of the channel has so much to do with the astrology of the present moment and where things are heading towards in the coming years. So this is more of a longer term energy. And this video is specially dedicated for all artists out there. And I have a lot of artist connections and friends. So yes, this video is especially for you guys. Why? Because certain big astrological moves, but also small ones, are evolving in a very rapid way, exactly your world, your domain, your everything that you guys stand for, who you are at the very core of your soul, but not necessarily who in a personal identity wise, but as the artist, as a, let's say, Neptunian or Venusian, or there are many archetypes that have something deeply personal with art, or if we necessarily want to complicate things, every single planet has an artistic side, every single archetype. Everything in astrology potentially has an artistic side or touch as well. And let me give you some strong examples of energies which shouldn't, yet they still do. Well, one of this example is Uranus. Uranus is, how should I say, the cold, hard truth reality, not interpretable. However, even Uranus has an artistic side. For example, the Renaissance and the Illumination period, where the anatomy, and all of the sculptures and painting, the attempt was to depict the human body as spot on as possible. And but that spot onness, Uranus, and Uranus was a big energy playing out in that era, uh became artistic still, right? It was cold hard truth, the reality of Uranus. However, it still was artistic and valued as such, and it became very, very Venusian. However, Venus is born, let us never forget that, out of the family jewels of Uranus. So she is rebellious and Uranian by her very nature. Venus is where she's all about transcendent, right? Love, the subjectivity of it. However, that subjectivity must always have a touch of realism, Uranus, otherwise it's delusion. Otherwise, it's not in the realms of Venus anymore. It is deep Neptunian. So it's surreal, not real. Nothing to do with Venus many times. Even though Neptune, of course, is Venus's higher octave. But going back, there you go. Uranus has an artistic touch. Or Star Trek. It's science fiction. Nowadays, science fact, but as I said, it's technology. Technology is dry of feeling and, you know, however, look, it's an art. It's a very greatly appreciated and very emotion transmitting art. And the core is still Uranus, because it's the technology of all, and the higher thinking, and the future. A future which, of course, nowadays we know that it's very possible, or better said, probable, right? But you might say, okay, we get Uranus, Pluto, Pluto, the goth culture, in any way, shape, sense, form. Melancholy, sad Pluto. Like, I don't, Pluto, in a sense, is actually a massive well of inspiration and raw emotion and art and all of that. Tragedy, the tragic stories, very, very Pluto. Saturn, well, Saturn has a very strong artistic side, just that the Saturnian art is not everyone's, of course, cup of tea. Saturn, the Great Wall of China, for example. I know it's not art per se, however, you cannot ignore the impression it leaves on you. The sacrifice, the pyramids. It's not art per se, yet it still is artistic because it is a, how should I say, in a rudimentary way of looking at it, a funeral tombstone, like a crypt. You get where I'm going with this. Something that is for the dead. So immediately that's transcend, that's artistic. So I don't even, let's not discriminate the other planets. Mercury, like Mercury poetry, there you go. I don't need, Mercury's done now. Venus is by her very nature, I don't even need to speak about her. Venus is anything you want. Venus is actually make art of anything you want, like properly, in the realist sense, even that is which is impossible. Venus will find a way. Uh, like the robot that had to not suicide himself. I can't explain this further because it's such a complex art. Google it. It was a robotic hand which had hydraulic fluid in it, but it had to scoop that up and put it back in itself in order not to die, basically. And that was a big hit in the world of art because it died eventually after many, many years. So there you go. Venus found a way, and it's absurd. But then again, Mars, martial arts. So there you go. Jupiter, I really don't need to speak about Jupiter. Philosophy many times has a very strong philosophical poems and philosophy mixed in movies. Star Wars. Now, Star Wars has a big dose of Jupiter in it. Very strong Jupiter in it. So there you go. But before we get any further, before I actually share the channel with you, there are other more minor planet power players actually that also are deeply artistic. And these are just the biggest, most relevant examples, in my humble opinion. And one of them is, well, if Neptune is the big dog in the artistic dimension, right? So Neptune cannot be left out from this equation when it has to do with art. Then his wife, well, she also has a place. And his wife is Salasha. Salasha is a trans-Neptunian object, and right now she's at 9 degrees of Aries. But because she travels very slowly like the rest of her kin, she was here and she'll be here for a couple of years, for a good number of years from now on. But what matters is that Salasha is actually a key player here, because in the sign of Aries, it means the first breath, right? But the first breath in a deeply artistic way in a world where art is not as free as it used to be. Or maybe I didn't word this correctly. The world of art was very heavily Capricornized, industrialized. You need a degree, you need to go to university. For recognition, you need to, oh my goodness, how much pain you need to, psychological pain, spiritual pain, physical hours, back pain. Sorry. Or I say back pain, but back pain is something that so very many categories of different artists can have. So that's why I said that. Saturn, the back, the sacrifice, the labor. So it's not as free as Neptune or Pisces. No, Pisces ruled by Neptune. It cannot be contained. Yes, it takes the shape and form of the container, but if it's missed, it will find a way out. You can contain the spirit, really, right? So it by nature, it's much more meant to be free than not. And Aries returning to the primal. So this means freedom. Freedom is coming in the artistic world. I'm so sorry. I have some kind of cold coming on again. Just needed to take a sip of water, sorry. So, where I'm going with this, prepare yourself, guys, because freedom is knocking at the door. Rebirth in a massive way is knocking at your door. And that will change everything. And since you guys, this is part of your livelihood for many of you, change is coming in the following years. So that means stability is not going to be the same as it usually is. So this is where it is really wise to prepare yourselves. Since you guys by default work with the spirit, I'm very sure that if anyone who is not necessarily like a prophet or seer or whatever can kind of sense what is coming, well, it's you guys. So you can probably sense the change where the chains of slavery and conditioning art are gonna fall off. So it means the industry will suffer many transformations. Salasha in Aries is exactly all about that. Very, very, very much about that. Because Salasha is not necessarily just an artistic inspiration, but the transcendent type. You know, when the artist opens his eyes, her eyes, and looks at the scenery, he has to sense Salasha's expression for that to burn itself into his soul so he can paint it out, right? Because he's not painting what the physical receptors in his eyes translate to his brain, but he rather paints what his soul sees, his true organ. That's Salasha. The moment when the artistic inspiration actually is burned into you. She is the salt in the sea, right? She gives the sea, the seaness, the ocean, as in not as directly per se, but without the salt in the picture, it just doesn't make sense in any way, shape, and form. And you don't need to be in the water, at the beach, the brine, the smell, the feeling, the sound. And of course, the light, how it plays with the water and everything. Or Salasha doesn't need to be near water, right? Because she has a deep feeling. Let's say it's an autumn afternoon, you take a walk, and we still have the last phases of the sun trying to warm us up, the last fire, the dying fire of the sun, so to speak, before the winter solstice comes, and it pierces through the falling leaves from the branches of a tree, and the light projects certain patterns before you on the walk. Well, that is burned into your soul. Chances are you're high without any substances in that moment. You see spirit directly, if you know what I mean, because you're able to walk into its dimension for a millisecond, but in that dimension, when all of the scenery that I depicted, the sunlight piercing through the falling leaves from a tree that is half alive and half dormant, if you know what I mean. The magic of autumn and the colors, of course, and the smell and the warm and cold at the same time. All of that is Salasha that burned herself in the salt, the brine, this flavor, the essence. That is what makes the CC, right? So Salasha is very important to you guys. And Salasha is insisting in Aries because she says, shackles off, take the shackles off of me. And also in Aries, we have Eris. Okay, they're not conversing with each other because they're very far apart, these two planetoids, but sharing the same sign energizes the other planet as well. So Salasha is her most rebellious self, aided by Eris, let's say. So it's almost like Eris gives Salasha the golden apple of discord and chaos, and so the industry, she's aiming for the industry, we know that, right? Eris, in her long presence in Aries, she is targeting Capricorn. She's fighting with Capricorn and Cancer, of course, but Cancer is a different type, that's a different expression. So she's targeted, rebel against the industry, rebel against the chains. This is what they're doing. So that's Salasha. Quaoar is the next planet, and Quaoar is actually in Capricorn. So Salasha is battling off in a square Quaoar. Well, Quaoar is very strong related to vibration, harmonies, drumming, the beat when you beat the earth, the ground to evoke spirits and stress ancestral magic, but with sound and vibrations, and you get what I mean. And dance, of course. So this is an energy that basically inspired the ancestors. And don't get me wrong, the ancestors' art, as primitive as it was so much more powerful than ours. It bended reality, runes, did stuff for real. Not, of course, there. I don't want to say, I don't want to insult anything, but they're not as powerful as they were intended to be in their, of course, timeline. But Gwawar is that raw power that energizes all of that, the energy within it. Then we move to Meki Meki. So Gwawar is at 8 degrees of Capricorn. Meki Meki is at 10 degrees of Libra. Also a primal ancestral energy. It's more related to fertility and, the divine masculine in its raw primal form. It is closely related to Easter Island, so the legend of all of that. However, again, the tribal art, the tribal way of communing with the spirit through art, basically. And finally, on my list, of course, is Haumea at 1 degree of Capricorn, a fertility symbol. Haumea is very special because her physical shape resembles that almost of an egg, and she is one of the fastest objects in our solar system, revolving around her own axis. She has, I forgot the exact figures, you can simply Google Haumea's facts. She spins that means quantum, right? That's why she has an egg shape, because of her spin. So in the sign of Scorpio, transmutation. And anything that is transmutation is also artistic. The artistic act is transmutation. Haumea, the quantum, the fertility, the raw inspiration, that which defies reality, that which defies death. Why is defying death important? Because that's how you make someone's living spirit. So we're speaking about something that it existed here on earth, as close to eternal, immortal as possible, because the remembrance of it. So Haumea is also very important. But the big important energy, so with this I'll wrap up the astrology and I'll get to the channeling. Neptune, so I don't need to say anything else. Neptune, the very source of art, and Saturn, the structure, but the governor of Capricorn, the industry. Saturn and Neptune. So Saturn in Pisces, the industry is dissolving, losing its boundaries, losing its rules, losing its traditions. And in 2025, Saturn meets Neptune at the end degrees of Pisces, dissolution, dissolving, like really, really. And then they move together in the sign of Aries. Exactly the first breath. Remember, Salasha, Aries. So when they move into Aries, that's when the tower moment begins to stir in the industry, giving way to freedom, giving way to change. What that change is, well, Uranus in the sign of Taurus, he himself moving into Gemini. Taurus is embodied Venus, right? So the artistic act as it is here down on earth, but any sides of it, even the rewards and the financial and value worth, stuff like that. Uranus, the final revolution. So that also ties in very strongly with the industry is changing. And this is where freedom comes. So be ready, guys. And before freedom comes, the night is the darkest. The storm is the cruelest. It's drowning. So these moments are the hardest in any way, shape, and form. This is where something is stirring in your soul, a big act of rebellion in an artistic way, where even, it's dissolving your own Saturn. Your own unique way of self-expression is going bye-bye, but something new is being born out of that chaos. This is happening to you guys. How? Every artist is a unique piece of divine art, right? Every artist is a canvas with the brush and the palette and the colors doing itself, creating itself, writing its own story. So that's really up to you guys. But do not accept the shackles. And Pluto is not going to be in Capricorn anymore to the tower moment needs the lightning from the sky. That's Pluto in Capricorn right now for the final moment. That's not gonna be there because Pluto will be in the sign of Aquarius, right? So that means you guys will have to be Plutos in your domain, groundbreakers, revolutionaries, disobeying many times the industry's needs and wants and rules, boycotting your own industry from the inside. Wasps, right, have queens. But when the queen becomes lazy or infertile, guess what her fate is? So you guys, but of course, symbolically, are gonna be evicting your own queens. Energetically speaking, of course, but that will reflect in value and in different trends and ways in the industry. So Aries is where there might be moments, especially 2025, 2026, because only in 2026 is the move into Aries, both for Neptune and Saturn for Sirius, and also Uranus into Gemini. And Uranus into Gemini is freedom again, but it's an air sign. It's quick freedom. It's freedom's everywhere. And Uranus in Gemini is where, either due to technology or whatever, you can share anything and it can get exactly where it needs to be. This is where it's not just the sharer, but also the one who needs to experience a quantum age, truly. So information flies or teleports, or I don't know. So that's an advantage at the end of the day. So the artistic energy, right? That's gonna be very much there. And what will freedom mean? It's really up to you guys. So if life right now is really not playing by the rules, if things seem super hyper unjust and unfair for you guys in your lives, materially or recognition, or why can't I be like XYZ? Why not me? Why am I lesser than someone? But this is needed because it is boiling you in the juices of injustice. But why? Because what it's actually screaming to you is that the spirit does not respect whatsoever the earthly values. The spirit is, if anything, defies earthly value. The spirit has to not respect that, even, but the more serious we take it, the more spirit mocks it until we get to total mockery from the spirit. The industry today, but when I say industry, every industry. This is where you restrict the world of arts aggressively, politically, and on the other way, when you want to the spirit wants to restrict it, then you pump into it things that are disgusting. So we make art something unholy. All of this changes now, and you guys are the seeds of that change. So if you're boiling in your own juices right now, it's to make you realize that without you guys, art cannot exist and have any kind of value. So the grand structure of all things must respect that, because you're the components, the little people, not the constructs that got there. So this is the astrological part, because change is coming, and because Neptune is heavily involved for artists, without a shadow of a doubt. So my channel, this is where uh let's begin how it all got together. I was like, normal day and chilling out, and I hear a saxophone. And I ignore it, but then it starts moving my spirit. And I say, who on earth could? And I look out the window, just a standard wedding. Here weddings have so many different type of, it's not every region has a different tradition. Every family has a different tradition. So some people walk from their home to the church, and usually they're accompanied by someone who makes music, either violinist or, and it really depends on the family's choice. So here we had a saxophonist and an accordionist, and I look at them, and they look so like they're just doing their jobs, nothing special. The saxophonist looked like, this is where he was so spirited that he was like a bumblebee, just being there. He was just being there, and he was floating along. He was so in his element that it was like, wow. The accordionist was a bit different, because he was in his accordion, as in his face, no emotion, his body like a robot, just knowing the path, but his hands, not a tune was missed. So two almost like opposite expressions of an artist and Neptune, but what they did together on autopilot. No, nothing special. Just another day at the job. Nothing special. If that moves the spirit this much, imagine if those two people are having a real party or have a really good moment in their lives and they want to express it with their instruments. What would that do? And it just dawned on me that these two souls there, for whom it was just another Saturday, were like heavily spirited. They were like titans, and their lives were probably not all that much pinker and nicer than my very own. And then, a wedding is full of spirits, right? When a couple goes to the church, the living are, that's one party, but around them the ancestors and this soul, that soul, grandmother, grandfather, this relative, that everyone wants to give the blessing if the love is real, right? If the couple is a real couple, then they come because everyone wants to give the gift, not just the living. So a spirit from there just came and said, well, was this ever any different? This is exactly how it should be, because that guy, well, you see that he's playing for the wedding and for the money, but he's really playing for the spirit, the divine. That's why he moves you even from the comfort of your home and whatever. And the other saxophonist, the one who has the big sales and does nothing to you. You like you even turn it off. and they could play the same melody, and technically we would hear the same sound. And then it dawned on me, but then this is the alchemy's journey for every artistic soul out there. For you guys, it's not just that saxophonist guy, but it's also you guys. You guys are also like, never forget bumblebees. You can just flow. For you, it comes effortlessly. It flows out of you. It's just another walk in the park. It's weaved into your essence. So if there's something you can do for yourselves, then that is the world of Capricorn is your judge, like it or not in the present moment still, because that's how the world is made now. But then do yourselves a favor and let you not judge yourself by the standards of Capricorn. Do what you do for the spirit. Let the spirit be the primary recipient of whatever it is that you express yourself as. Think that the divine is the audience. Want to impress it. Have no boundaries with your art. Dare to put that tear or blood and sweat or whatever juices you want into your art, but dare to do it. Impress the divine and not the earthly. And that's how the artistic revolution takes place. So, how should I say? Dare to have a good bite from Eris's golden apple. Because you guys are the real. No one can judge you. Only you can judge the industry. Vice versa, it is simply not possible. So thank you everyone for giving me this opportunity and for your audience. Until next time, bye for now.